Here we go again. Aaron Rodgers running off at the mouth. This time, Rodgers was at the American Century Championships, and he said, quote, "I love Davante Adams. I can't wait to play with him again." What? Garrett Wilson on Adams during the Garrett Wilson Youth Football Camp. This happened in Jersey. He said he was asked about Rodgers' comments. He said, "Yeah, I saw that. I'm excited. I'm with all of it. Anyone we can get into the facility to help this team win games, I'm with it, and he's one of those." What is going on, Keegs? I mean, is this Rodgers guy, between doing shrooms at darkness retreats and maybe running for VP, now he's pandering and posturing to steal Davante Adams out of Vegas and bring him to New York? I mean, what's going on, Keegs?
Aaron Rodgers stinks. He's the worst. He is something else. It's been like it was like 2 weeks, right? And no one was talking about him for a couple weeks. So he had to go run his mouth.
Right.
And he had to start talking about, I love Davante Adams. I'm going to bring him in. And we went through this last year. And then your ankle exploded. So maybe just go play some football for the first time in 2 years. And people will forget about how obnoxious you've been and how much of a drama queen you are. Like, he loves the attention. That's all he's doing this for. He wants the attention. There's no chance in hell the Raiders are chipping off Davante Adams.
No, right.
And Aaron Rodgers thinks he's some medical miracle and he's going to come out and play until he's 50. I give him 2 more years. He is – every time I hear his name, it goes right over my head and I ignore it because I'm just done with it.
You're giving him more credit than I am. I don't see 2 years at all. I actually think this is I think this is a train wreck. I thought that when he signed with the Jets. And, year one, I didn't see injury. I thought he made a mistake going to New York. I thought staying in Green Bay was the play. And the whole reason it didn't work in Green Bay was him. He was a pain in the butt. And he just complained his way out of town. Meanwhile, he was surrounded by these great young wide receivers. And, you let him tell it. It was, it's going to take too long for them to develop and gel. And bro, what are you talking about? And then, he had a great running game. We know Aaron Jones is gone now, but at the time he had Jones. He had a great offensive line. He had Matt LaFleur, who, I didn't know if Matt LaFleur could coach or not until Rodgers left, because I didn't like the way LaFleur inherited Aaron Rodgers. And then everyone made him out to be some genius. And I said, well, let's see what he does when he doesn't have a Hall of Fame quarterback. Well, turns out he can coach, and so respect to him. But Rodgers complained about him the whole way. And he just kind of ran himself out of Green Bay. I felt like he forced their hand. And then he handpicks his roster. He wants to go to New York. And I'm like, bro, you had a great roster, and the NFC is way easier than the AFC, so you're a moron. And then all the darkness retreat stuff and the political stuff, he's just too much. And so I thought year one in New York would be, Tom Brady ate avocado ice cream and slept in a hyperbaric chamber and lost his family for football. That's how much he wanted to age and play at a high level. Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers is going on acid trips. It's not the same thing. You're not gonna age the same way, right? It's a whole different vibe.
He's dwindling down. He's picking the one thing that is gonna just take all of everything you need to be a professional athlete, and he's like, I don't need it. I'm gonna throw. He stinks.
Yes.
I can't. And like you said, he went from maybe the most stable organization in the NFL to the least stable organization and the biggest dumpster fire there is.
Yes.
And he handpicked it because that's who he is as a person. He needs the drama. So It's perfect for him. I hope he lives a long, healthy life in New York after his, 2.5 years are up.
Bro, I'm watching this. We talked about this. I'm watching this receiver show on Netflix. Davante Adams is about as unhappy as you're going to find in Vegas. I mean, he pretty much single-handedly got Garoppolo and McDaniels up out of there. Not to say they didn't earn it, but he was focal. He was a focal point in that, and very vocal in getting that to happen, and admitted as much on the show. Like, yeah, he was like, I signed off on that. We had to make changes. But with that being said, the Raiders still didn't go outside of, I do believe taking the interim tag off of Antonio Pierce was the right move. But outside of that, his quarterbacks are Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. So, I mean, like, I don't think Davante Adams is going to be happy there in Vegas. And with that being said, even if he tries to force his hand, if the Raiders are smart and you have to trade Davante Adams, you better not send him to New York. You better send him somewhere else. Send him back to the NFC where you don't have to deal with him. The last thing you want to do is put him back with his boy in New York there with the Jets and Aaron Rodgers. So to put a bow on this, Keegs, it sounds like we are in lockstep. Neither one of us like Aaron Rodgers at all. Neither one of us believes that Aaron Rodgers is going to have any sort of success here with the Jets. And neither one of us believes that Davante Adams will be traded from Vegas to New York. He could be traded. It sounds like we're both open to it, but he ain't going to New York. Would you say I covered everything there, Keegs?
And Aaron Rodgers stinks. I want to get that on the record again. He's the worst. We can move on after that, but I just had to say it one more time. I need to make sure that no one confuses my stance on Aaron Rodgers. He's obnoxious, and he's a bad person, probably. Continue.
He stinks, and we hate him. All right, now.
That's right.
We're talking quarterbacks here, and we're talking Davante Adams, who plays wide receiver, and we're saying Rodgers and Davante once had a bromance and made all amazing things happen on the field. So let's get into quarterback wide receiver duos. Well, we could say target. We could say quarterback and a target relationship, because spoiler alert, have a couple tight ends on this list. So give me your top three, let's call it quarterback target duos of all time. Who's your top three? You got make it suspenseful for me, Keegs. Go 3-1. Right. Build it up for me.
We're on the same page here. I'm going to start at 3, Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison.
Okay.
That is the golden era for me growing up. Brady was around, obviously, but he never had that guy. And Peyton, I think Marvin Harrison did wonders for Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning did wonders for Marvin Harrison. And they clearly posted incredible numbers together, obviously. 953 catches, 12,766 yards, and 112 touchdowns. That's absurd. I mean, that's insane. Number 2, I'm going back to Brady. And like I said, he never had that receiver, but he had that tight end. So it's Brady and Gronk.
Yep.
Don't have the numbers in front of me, but you're listening to this show, so you obviously watched them. They were absurd across 2 different organizations for 10-plus years, despite injuries, despite age. They did it together, and I think neither one of them would have been as successful as they were during that stretch without each other. And then number 1 might be a little surprising. When I hear about Jerry Rice, the first quarterback I usually think of is Joe Montana. Steve Young and Jerry Rice, there was no one better. I looked up the numbers. They played together longer than Montana and Rice, but 780 catches, 11,462 yards, and 119 touchdowns in 8 years together is absurd. And that's almost double, all of those numbers, almost double what Montana and Rice did together. Obviously, they had more time, but more prolific per game than the other duo were. So I was actually honestly surprised when I looked through this. I had them at 3, and they bumped up to 1 because they were really – that's an insane stretch.
Yeah, I mean, there's people that never even get near those numbers in their career ever. So there's no doubt about that. All right, so, you talked about Marvin Harrison and Peyton Manning. I don't have them on my list, and the numbers bear out that they should be. And I'm a self-admitted hater. I can't stand Peyton Manning, but I will say this. Those 2 were prolific as all get out. I left them off of my list only not because of my hate for Peyton, but also I just remember how great Reggie Wayne was too, and how I remember Edge. I remember Edgerrin James, and I remember Dallas Clark, and I just felt like Peyton Manning had a lot of weapons. Now, Harrison was the biggest beneficiary, but he just had weapons galore. So sometimes it was hard for me to separate Manning and Harrison's greatness because they had so many weapons, which is why I also have Brady and Gronk on my list, because as you alluded to, Brady did not have the weaponry that Peyton Manning did. He had Gronk, and he had a great defense, and he had Julian Edelman, of course, but he had a great defense and the Patriot way, and he was just Tom. He was a zombie. You couldn't kill him off. If you were down in a game, Tom was going to come back, whether the Patriots won or lost. He was going to bring you back and make it interesting in the end. And Brady and Gronk were just about as unstoppable as I've ever seen. Triple coverage didn't matter. He was throwing it up to Gronk, and Gronk was going to get it. So they're my 3. 2, bro, I can't believe you didn't have him on the list. This Mahomes, Kelsey, I mean, like at this point, I have Mahomes and Kelsey over Brady and Gronk. Now individually, I have Brady higher than Mahomes, and I have Gronk higher than Kelsey individually. But as a combo platter, I got to go Mahomes and Kelsey together are greater than Brady and Gronk. I mean, these two, it's unbelievable. And now I know how probably fans outside of here felt watching Brady and Gronk, where it's like you knew he was going to throw to Gronk and you still couldn't stop him. That's how I feel with Mahomes and Kelsey. I mean,
how did he get that open? I think it every time I watch a game. How is he that open?
Bro,
it's crazy.
And it's the opposite of what Peyton Manning had in Indy. Mahomes doesn't have weapons now. I get when he had Tyreek Hill and Kelsey and all. He ain't got that now. So it's like, Kelsey's all you got. How's he this wide open? Those two are unstoppable. And then number 1 on my list, I went insert QB and Jerry Rice. I don't give a damn who it is. Montana, Young, I don't care. I mean, Rice.
Steve Berline.
It doesn't matter. Honestly, I think Jerry Rice is appropriately admired and like he gets his flowers. But in a weird way, Keegs, I almost feel like he's underrated, though, because all time. Like, his numbers are absurd. They are absurd. He has records that I just don't think will ever be caught, ever. And we're in a passing league, and we still may not see it. So Jerry Rice is the X factor here. And that's not taking anything away from Steve Young or Joe Montana, 2 Hall of Famers, 2 all-time greats. But Jerry Rice, you have him. You and me at quarterback are going to get some records with this guy.